Hello everyone, my name is Chris and welcome back to the channel. This is where we love to have inspired conversation around all things personal finance, income tax strategy, and business advisory. Today I'd like to kick off a video series on what I like to call the 10 stages of the wealth journey. But first, why? Why do I want to get up in front of this camera and talk a little bit about wealth building and the wealth journey and how I've thought of it in 10 different stages? To me, the inspiration comes to two client stories. You see, I'm a CPA. I've been practicing for almost 30 years in the beautiful state of Colorado. Towns like Aspen and Telluride, Grand Junction, Montrose, Western Colorado, where there are great clients, hardworking clients. And I've been able to witness and advise a variety of clients along their wealth journey. And my role has not only been as an advisor, but I've been an observer and a student of how clients build wealth. And I can certainly tell you, one journey looks very different than the next. So back to my two clients. Two clients that I want to talk about. Client number one, a husband and wife, public servants. They work for the municipality where they live. W-2 employees, working hard, getting promotions over a long career, making an impact in what they do every day, making an impact in their community and in their jobs, and steadily, slowly learned the value of saving money. They weren't extravagant, they didn't have huge salaries, but they learned the value of saving consistently over time within their retirement accounts and within other types of accounts. And before you knew it, they had over $3 million of liquidity and were able to retire early and live, and to this day are living a very full retirement. Example number two, an entrepreneur, a business-minded entrepreneur that invented a product out of his garage. And from that was able to build a business around that product. And over time, over a long period of time, built that business to a substantial value. And by building that business while also investing in real estate connected to that business, was able to exit that business for over $30 million. So those are two examples. And there are so many other examples like client number one, like client number two, that have journeys that may be similar and may be very different. So I like to sum up three truths when I think about the clients that I have observed. One, you've got to live below your means to create excess liquidity. That's a fancy way of saying live below your means so you have some extra cash. Extra cash so behavior number two, or hard truth number two, you take that cash and you invest it. You embrace risk and invest that excess liquidity, that cash that you were able to create from living below your means. And then number three, you have a steady, long-term perspective. Get rich quick schemes, short-term thinking. How can I get rich quick? Doesn't work. Doesn't work for the majority of people. I'd like to talk a little bit about the 10 stages of the wealth journey. Today's video, we're going to focus on stages 1 through 4, which are the financial stability stages of the wealth journey. So let's go over to the whiteboard and have some fun. Here we go. So here we are at the whiteboard, and an important point I want to make before we get started. The 10 stages of the wealth journey is very much a customizable framework. It's meant to recognize that personal finance is just that, personal. Everybody's unique set of behaviors, skills, and circumstances. The 10 stages will be crafted and should be crafted around each person's unique journey. Stage number 1, which is planting investment seeds. Well, the biggest asset that we all have in our wealth building journey is time. And so the younger we are and the earlier we are in our wealth journey, if we can learn to plant investment seeds and get started with the investment process, then the bigger that wealth tree will grow. The power of compounding earnings is so critical that I have to put this as stage number 1 so we think about it first. Might there be a time one would pass up stage number 1? Yes. And we'll talk about that towards the end of this discussion on stage 1. Let's go through a simple whiteboard analysis on the power of compound earnings. And we're going to have an example here of Sally and Sam. Sally's the black line, Sam is the blue line. Sally and Sam, we're going to give each of them $1,200 per year to invest, compounded annually at a 10% rate of return. The S&P 500 over the last 50 years on average has returned 10.3%. We're going to round down and use 10% as an average stock market rate of return for Sam and for Sally. If Sally starts her investment process, investing $1,200 a year, starting at age 25, and she's going to go to age 35. This along the bottom is age. This along the top is $0 up to $450,000. So Sally begins her investment process, $1,200 per year for 10 years up until the age of 35, at which point she stops. Now, at that point, she's invested $1,200 a year. That's $12,000 of original investment, and her investments have grown to approximately $21,000. And now she sits here, right here at age 35 and says, you know what? You only live once. I'm going to stop doing this. I want to go live life YOLO. I'm going to spend money and stop saving. I'm going to keep what I've saved, the $21,000 just sitting there at age 35. I won't touch that, but I'm going to stop investing my $1,200 per year. Sam says, you know, I don't want to start saving $1,200 a year at age 25. I'm going to live my life, or I've got to pay off debts. I've got to do things that I have to get to, and I'm going to wait till age 35 to begin my investment of $1,200 per year. So Sam starts at age 35, and for 30 years, up until the age of 65, he begins to invest $1,200. So he invests $1,200 for 30 years. That's a $36,000 of total initial investment. So when we look at Sally and we look at Sam, what do their investments lead to at the age of 65? For Sally, she only invested $1,200 per year for 10 years, starting at age 25 up until 35. And then let $21,000, the value of the account at age 35, sit for another 30 years. That grows to $367,000. $367,000 for Sally at the age of 65. Sam, who waited 10 years and started at age 35, started investing $1,200, and for 30 years, $36,000 total invested. We'll use blue for Sam, his dollar amount accrued to $217,000. So you say, wow, how can Sam have so much less when he invested 30 years at $1,200 where Sally only invested for 10 years? The power of compound earnings and getting started early, in Sally's case, proved to be a difference here of $150,000. Quite a sum of money difference. For starting early, Sally was able to let $21,000 that accumulated after 10 years just compound on itself for another 30 years to get to $367,000. So with that, maybe we ask some questions. What would it take for Sam to catch Sally? Well, Sam would have to increase his monthly amount by by $830 to $2,030 per year. So he'd have to increase by $830 over that 30-year period in order to catch Sally at $367,000. Or Sam would have to obtain a higher rate of return of 12.6%, or 2.6 percentage points higher than the 10% rate of return in our example. So in other words, Sam would have to take on more risk in his portfolio to achieve a higher rate of return if he wanted to stay with that $1,200 a year for 30 years. So hopefully this is a good example of how compound earnings works and how important it is to get started as soon as possible. Now, this is a good example of my own unique story. As a 23-year-old CPA that started in the profession in 1996, I got started investing in my employer's 401k plan. I'm so thankful that I did that $100 a month as a young accountant starting out in his career. It's led to a strong base in my 401k account that's now growing substantially and is able to keep me and my family secure in my retirement years. So it's worked for me. I know it can work for you. I've lived it. So as we finish up stage number 1, let's cover a few key points. The best way to get started planting investment seeds is through your employer's retirement plan, especially if your employer offers a match of 50% to 100% of every dollar you put in. That's too good a return on your money not to at least consider getting started investing with your employer's retirement plan. Now, what if you have a lot of high interest credit card debt that you need to get paid off in stage 3? What if you have no cash for emergencies? Should you still get started in stage 1? I think it's going to be a unique conversation that says maybe so if you have that match and you can diligently apply yourself to get started in stages 2 and 3 and 4 in building cash reserves and getting consumer debt paid off. However, if you're honest with yourself and you know that you're in consumer debt for a reason, and that might be because you don't have your spending habits under control, and you make poor decisions with money, and you need to learn and grow about how to create a spending plan and stick with it. If you're not able to do that, then I would say forego stage number 1, because you don't want to just start funding an employer retirement plan to get a year or 2 down the road and yank it out of that plan and pay penalties and taxes and basically be worse off than what you started. So be real with your spending behavior, and that will help you make a decision on whether you get started in stage number 1 using your employer plan, or you pass up stage number 1 to move on to stage 2. Speaking of which, let's move on to stage 2, which is the all-important Murphy Fund. How much should we have in a Murphy Fund? A Murphy Fund is a fund where we know that things will go wrong. It's just a matter of when, not if. And so how much money should we have sitting aside to take care of those little emergencies? Last summer, me and my family, we were in a little Colorado mountain town enjoying a 4th of July weekend. We had our dog along with us, and it just so happens the dog got sick, and sick enough to where we felt, well, we need to take our pride and joy, our Kipper the dog, into a vet on the 4th of July in a high-end resort town in Colorado. That was unexpected. That was also very expensive to have to go into an emergency vet on the 4th of July, being out of town to take care of that situation. Kipper made it through just great and everything's fine. But $500 later, we had an emergency expense that thankfully we had some cash on hand to take care of. So it's important to take care of those little things. It might be the washing machine that goes out. It's the car that has a transmission issue. Whatever it may be, it's the dog that has an emergency vet bill. We all have those situations. We have to plan to have cash on hand to take care of those Murphy Fund situations. So how much should you have on hand? I say start with $1,000, but think of 3 different dollar amounts. One, $1,000 as the base, the least amount that you will work to fund in a Murphy Fund. I want to think of then the highest amount being the sum total of your deductibles for home insurance, health insurance, and auto insurance. Whatever those 3 deductibles are, add them together, and that will be an amount that you say, should I fund at least that amount? But there's a third dollar amount I want you to think about, and it's a dollar amount that's between $1,000 and the sum total of those deductibles. Why do this? Well, you are unique. Everybody's situation is unique. Not everybody has a dog that is 14 years old. Not everybody has a car that is about to go out because of its age or because of the miles on the car. Everybody's health history is so unique. You think about your own unique set of circumstances and determine, based on history and what you've had to come out of pocket for emergencies for in the past, and say, I should probably have a dollar amount of this. If you're comfortable with $1,000, then pick 1,000. If you want to be as conservative and go as high as the sum total of your deductibles, then pick that. Or pick an amount in between that makes sense to you. But otherwise, pick a dollar amount and fund that Murphy Fund so you have cash on hand for those little emergencies. So with that, let's move on to stage number 3, which is pay off consumer debt. Again, consumer debt is a headwind to our wealth journey. So here we want to get consumer debt paid off. And I throw everything into this bucket when I say consumer debt. Student loans, car loans, credit card loans, store credit, personal loans. All of those types of things are consumer debt. Yes, could we analyze interest? What if some of that, Chris, what if some of that debt is low interest? I have a car loan and it's at 3.5% or 4.5%. I've got a student loan and it's at 4%. We can think about those things and strategically paying them off, certainly. But I want to start with the concept of let's get out of consumer debt and how quick can we do it. So the best way to get out of consumer debt is use the good old-fashioned Dave Ramsey's snowball method, which is stack up your debt from lowest balance to highest balance and pay off that lowest balance first. Then move to the second highest balance, and pay that off next. And then keep moving up the chain until you get all of those debts paid off. Now, I don't want you to forget about the second method, which is the avalanche method. That's lining up your debts from the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate. And tackle that high interest rate first, and then move to the next highest interest rate until you get the debt paid off in the order of the highest interest rate. If you apply the same dollar amount under the snowball method to the avalanche method, you will have more money in your pocket by using the avalanche method. It is simply just math. However, you need to be true with you. If from a behavior perspective and a psychological perspective, it makes sense to use the snowball method, then use it. Use it. It works. I love using the snowball method for many of those of us that really get excited and can build momentum by seeing something get accomplished. And then we move on and we build momentum and we build excitement. Then use the debt snowball method. If you're more of a financial geek and you like math, then using the avalanche method might be to your best choice. Either way, choose a method and get out of consumer debt. So we can then move on to stage 4, which is grow your Murphy fund to a true emergency fund. This is where we take your Murphy fund, which was at, again, that dollar amount between $1,000 and the sum total of your deductibles. And now we're going to grow that amount to a true emergency fund equal to 3 to 6 months of living expenses. You're going to determine your living expenses of what you would have to live on if you had no income coming into your household. What is that dollar amount? Take it times 3, 4, 5, or 6. And that may depend on whether you have a 2-earner household or a single earner household, the stability of your job, a whole host of things to think about on whether you pick 3, 4, 5, or 6 months times your living expenses. But either way, think through what that is and then diligently budget and save to get that emergency fund built. All right. That takes us to the end of our video on the first 4 stages of the wealth journey. These first 4 stages I like to call the financial stability stages. We're building financial stability. We're getting solid, building a foundation so we can then spring off of that to the growth stages of our wealth journey. And I also like to think about these first 4 stages as consecutive. As we move from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 4, we're consecutively tackling each step before we move on to the next. I also like to think about the next dollar kind of concept when it comes to stages 1 through 4, meaning the first dollar that comes in is going to be applied to planting investment seeds. We've made that decision where it makes sense to get started planting investment seeds. That first dollar goes to funding that employer's retirement account. And so once we've hit that dollar amount that we want to fund, every month into the investment account, then the next dollar goes into the Murphy fund. And we fund that Murphy fund. Every dollar goes into that Murphy fund until it hits the funding mark. Then once we've got it established, then every dollar after that, we're applying to consumer debt. Beyond the minimum payments on the consumer debt, we're applying that next dollar to consumer debt until we're out of consumer debt. And then at that point, the next dollar then goes to funding the emergency fund to get that Murphy fund grown to a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. And so that next dollar is being used for that purpose until we've reached that maximum emergency fund limit. I've enjoyed bringing this video to you today on the first 4 stages of the wealth journey. I want to leave you with one final thought, and that is this. Financial prosperity is not the pursuit, but can be a result of pursuing a prosperous and abundant life. I'll see you on the next video where we will talk about your why and how it's so important in the wealth building journey. Bye for now.
This presentation is brought to you by DWC Wealth Advisors. Information can be found at dwcwealthadvisors.com.